If I sound sickly or congested, it's because I am. Hope you're all having a better day than I'm having. That's not to say I'm having a bad day. It's just I feel like crap. So I happened upon the cesspool that is Twitter, and I saw this pop up on my feed. I don't really follow CJ, but his stuff pops up on my feed every now and again because he follows people that I follow, such as Dashy Lee, Celtic Phoenix, etc. And Ruby has been a show that I guess, gotten more ingrained with the fandom, I guess, fellow fans, I should say, than any other show besides maybe Game of Thrones and The Walking Dead. And generally, I get along with everybody in the two aforementioned fandoms, but in the Ruby one, for some reason, criticism's a hot take. It's like a touchy subject. It's like that taboo thing. You don't speak of it. You can't say things. You've got to abide by the code. Abide by the code. Now, that's not to say that everybody in the fandom is toxic and all that stuff. In fact, I would contend that the majority will listen. This is me being, what's the word? Devil's advocate, I guess, like for a better term, because the fandom does get a bad rep in other avenues, and it kind of turns people off from, hopping into the show or interacting with us. It's like, oh, I ain't touching that dumpster fire. But I've never had this many arguments with people over criticism. Like, they just don't seem to understand what criticism is. In the Game of Thrones realm of things, like, universally it's agreed the volume 8, excuse me, Freudian slip there, that season 8 is bad. That Benioff and Weiss fucked it up. And in The Walking Dead's had a lot of writing flaws and a lot of takes that I've had with people, not takes, excuse me, conversations I've had with people that are also Walking Dead fans to do, you know, we disagree on things, we agree on things, but at the end of the day, we walk away and we're like, that was a good civil discussion. And you know what? You're going to have your heated arguments. That's just nature of the beast. So, what CJ Black here posted, you can see I already responded to it, and I'm not going to read it because obviously you people can read. So, but what I will read, excuse me, is what he was responding to, and it's not a retweet or anything like that. It's just an image he got. So I guess hats off to whoever took the name out that way. This person does get harassed because I don't condone harassment of any kind. You just you attack the argument, not the person. Otherwise, what are you doing? So he says, "Hey," or this person says, "Hey y'all, could you mayhap stop bitching about the writing on Ruby?" No, I'm not going to stop bitching about the writing on Ruby because if I have a point to make, I'm going to make the point. Now there are people that just hate the show for the sake of hating the show. Don't get me wrong, they exist, but majority of people that criticize RWBY are coming. At least I understand where they're coming from, even if I don't fully agree with them. And again, this is a subjective matter because just because somebody doesn't like the show doesn't mean that you have to ruin your own experience because somebody said something about your favorite show that you don't like or that you didn't like. If you think you can do better, go work for Rooster Teeth Dragonstaff and shut the fuck up. I don't like takes like this, and I think it's generally agreed that these takes are bad. They're dismissive, they're childish, they're immature, and they're so petty. There are quite a few YouTubers doing rewrites, and there's also other people throughout the fandom doing rewrites. And I think rewrites are fine. It's just you imparting your own ideas into an established IP. It's no different than creating OCs. And a lot of people, or not a lot of people, I'm sorry, that sounds like a strawman argument, but I have seen takes from people that, oh, why are they doing the rewrites? The rewrites are bad. Like, and then you see things like this. Well, if you think you can do better, then go work for Rooster Teeth. Yeah, because Rooster Teeth's going to hire people. Um, and actually, I think he addressed it here. Yeah, because if I'm not mistaken, Miles and Carrie get the final say on what goes into the script of each episode. Like, they're the ones that get the final say. If not them, then Eddie Rivas and Kiersey also have a say in it. So, and it's not like Rooster Teeth's just going to hire you off the bat. So already out the gate, this is a horrendous take to address the criticism, and it's dismissive. It doesn't attack the points that people are making. It's just telling people to basically shut up, like shut up in color. And and again, this is a loud minority in the fandom for the most part because I've had productive conversations between me and other people that, they say Volume 8's their favorite. I say, well, it's aging like stale milk for me right now. It's not one of my favorite volumes. A lot of the writing decisions they made I thought were bad. Just and I could go into detail about that, but that's for another conversation. Not right now. I want to address like how the criticism of RWBY is it's like a super do not touch. Like I think I mentioned before with the Game of Thrones and the Walking Dead fandoms, unless that was another thing I did. Or another thing I did, another take I did because this is like the fifth time I'm recording this video because either I've felt like I'm out of breath, I might have COVID. Well, I'm probably gonna get myself tested soon. My dad actually has it, so we shall see. But with like Game of Thrones and Walking Dead, I generally have good, productive conversations with people. I've seldom had an argument that spiraled out of control, but with RWBY, it tends to happen a lot. Now, I'm more ingrained in the RWBY fandom because I'm friends with a lot of people in it. I interact with YouTubers that make the content, and Rooster Teeth is pretty open to communication with their fans. Like they interact with them, etc. They're and generally it's a good thing. But the problem is you have this parasocial idea where it's like, in fact, I even brought it up. Like, you think Rooster Teeth's going to pat you on the back for saying this to someone? They're not. And it's not Rooster Teeth's fault that this happened. It's people believing that Rooster Teeth or Miles or Carrie or whoever needs to be defended. Like they are sacred, they must be protected at all costs. Talking against them is sacrilege, and all that other stuff. And it's just like, I mean, I don't know if this person's a teen that just doesn't understand or whatever. But when I see like grown ass adults say shit like this, I'm like, what the fuck are you talking to? And why do you think? Why do you think people are going to take you seriously when you say something like this? Like, somebody doesn't like your favorite show or doesn't like RWBY, like who cares? They don't like it. Move about your day. And I guess it's like if you have if something as small as this is going to bother you, then clearly there's something else going on. But now, granted, sometimes you just see something, and like I've seen people say things about shows, books, movies, people, whatever, and just something just ticks in my head, and I'm like, I gotta respond. It's a knee jerk reaction. Sometimes emotion gets the better of us. It happens. So I'll give this person the benefit of the doubt and just say that, like, maybe they were having a bad day and just said, you know what, that was the straw that broke the camel's back because they saw somebody say something negative about the writing with RWBY. And to be honest with you, generally speaking, the writing has been almost universally agreed upon as being the main problem with the show. And it's like the retconning and the backpedaling and then the inconsistent character arcs with the main cast. I even had a conversation last night about how volumes 1 through 3, like the main four, didn't really save the day, or they weren't even the focal point of the main conflict. Because in volume 1, it ended up being Penny and Son, two characters that got introduced like the last two episodes of the entire first volume. By the way, check out Celtic Fans Productions rewrite. He does a fantastic job developing these characters. He gives the side characters more relevancy. He gives more love and attention to them than Mouse and Carrie do. And if you don't agree with me, I'm sorry, but that's how I felt that Celtic Phoenix handled his rewrite. But in Volume 2, it was Team Coffee. In Volume 3, it was Pura. Now, is it inherently a bad thing for the main four not to be the focal point of the show? No, because if you've watched Naruto, sometimes there are arcs where Naruto's not even involved. Same thing with One Piece. There are arcs where Luffy isn't necessarily involved in the main thing going on, but for the most part, Luffy is. But in Naruto, I like how they interchange between who's the focal point of this particular arc. In RWBY, it's like, whose story is this again? Is it Is it RWBY herself, or is it her team? Who is it? And so it's like to me the narrative seems confused on what it's trying to do. RWBY herself hasn't had much development or changes. Like, for example, I kind of wish they would have stuck more with the conversation or not the conversation, the rant that Roman threw at her, like in Volume 4, bring up what Roman said, not like quote like quote him verbatim, but basically say that like the words stuck to her, which they should have, because you can have Ruby start off as this idealist. I want to be the hero. I want to kill monsters and save people, and then get once she gets more experience, she has that more realistic take on what she wants to be. But they don't have that. They haven't gone for that. They kind of tried for it in Volume 4 and maybe a little bit in Volume 6, but they kind of just, it's almost like Roman's words, just like it's like Roman didn't even say anything to begin with. Blake and Yang, they kind of plateaued. They haven't really grown since Volume, I want to say 6. Uh, and of course, you think about how Ironwood did all these things for them. He gave Yang an arm. He stood up for Wise. He stood up for Ruby. He, what else did he do? Oh, he made them official huntresses. He entrusted them with the relic. He brought them into his inner circle, and all this other stuff. And it's like, well, what does he need to do in order to gain your trust? But Robin, who you've like, Yang and Blake had never interacted with her up until the point where they like were chasing her. It was like, listen, it's all a misunderstanding. Ironwood's trying to do the right thing, and it's like, okay, so you're gonna trust her, but not Ironwood? What? And of course, they get all pissy with Ironwood. And to be fair to the writers, that episode 11 of Volume 7, the nuance between Ironwood's idea of what's best and Team Ruby's idea of what's best, I could see both sides. Ironwood is being more practical. He's got more experience. He's being a bit more logical. Whereas Team Ruby is like, well, we're huntresses. We're supposed to protect people, right? We can't just leave them. And they're young. They haven't seen the same things that Ironwood has. So I kind of understood both sides, and like neither one was inherently wrong. Um, but also you think about how they got all up in freaking Osmond's face about lying and omitting things and all this other stuff, and then you go around, you do the same thing to Ironwood, and suddenly he's wrong, he's the bad guy, and yada yada yada. Now, granted, Ironwood could be an antagonist but still be a human. Like they dehumanized him in Volume 8, so it was easy to hate him. And I kind of just tuned my brain off that way. I didn't really think about that when I was watching it or reacting to it, because nobody wants to watch somebody just bitch about a show for minutes upon minutes, because most of my reactions tend to be under an hour. Um, and yeah, like even with some of the more critical people towards Ruby, they were fair to the show. I felt they gave honest opinions. They didn't try to make people feel bad for liking something. They just said, here's the problem I have with the show. Here's why it's the problem, and sometimes they may have offered a solution. That's what the rewrites kind of tend to be. Is they are addressing the flaws that they themselves have seen in the show, and they're just it's essentially a fanfic, and then people are getting all riled up over it, and it's like, listen, Miles and Carrie, they they aren't immune to criticism. They can be criticized for their writing choices, and that's that's an objective fact. So now, what I will agree with Miles on, well, at least to an extent, I agree to an extent with what he said, and that is, when somebody offers you criticism and you agree with them, but then they're an asshole about it and you don't want to listen to them, I can understand why that, because that's just having self respect. You don't want somebody to talk down to you. You don't want them to bully you into doing what you want them to do, and that's what this jackass over here is doing. It's the same thing. It's just on the other side of the fence. And so, when Miles said that, I was like, yeah, you know what? I agree. But, at the same time, he focuses a little too much on the negative things people say about, his writing or Carrie's writing or Kiersey or Eddie Rivas' writing or any of the other writers that work on the show. And so it's like it's like you have 100 people you're greeting. You get 99 handshakes and a slap to the face. What's going to stand out to you more? The slap in the face, because that one's just like, well, what the hell was that? And you're going to think about that for the rest of the day, not the other 99 people that you shook hands with. And so I feel like that's what Miles does at times on Twitter or wherever, is that he focuses more on that slap to the face that he got and not the 99 handshakes. And there was something I saw, I think it was on like the commentary notes, that like they got criticism that Blake and Ruby haven't interacted, and I'm like, fair. because they don't. And we got a scene with them, although the scene was a little awkward. But I like that they attempted. They at least listened. And so, credit where credit's due. But at this point, I am rambling. I just wanted to get this like off my chest because I'm tired of seeing people have bad takes like this on people that criticize the show and say like, "Well, if you think you can do better, go work for Rooster Teeth." It's like, no, no. You think people can just walk up to Rooster Teeth and say, "Hey, I want to be on your writing team," and Rooster Teeth's like, "Hired." Sorry, it doesn't work like that. Um, what did Roman say? The real world isn't kind or whatever. But you're gonna have people like this. There's nothing you can really do about it. Like these people have already made up their minds about how they feel towards the criticism, so you could give them all the details of why you think this is bad or that's bad, but they've already made it up in their minds that they don't agree with you. So engaging with them, it's a waste of time. My advice: ignore people like this. CJ, he at least listens. I've had a couple of back and forths with him, but that was like back when Volume 7 was going on, I think. So, but anyways, I just wanted to give my take on like how Ruby fandom doesn't seem to handle criticism very well and has this kind of petty shit. As they're like, aha, I suck it to the man. But whatever. Anywho, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I hope you're not and if you are, as sick as I am, I hope you feel better. But anyways, see you later.